Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Kel, who's a beginning photographer from Georgia. Kel created this image with a Canon Power Shot and an effective focal length of around 35 millimeters, and the camera settings were f/5.6 at a 500th of a second. Kel said she snapped this shot, and then when she looked at it, she really liked it quite a bit, and she doesn't know why, and she wants to know what we think of it. So let's get right into it. There are two things that I like a lot about this image right away. One is the quality of light. I love the fact that there's a really beautiful pattern to the lighting, and it's happening in an area of the image that could have really flattened out. So I just love what this pattern of light is doing for this part of the image. And not only that, it immediately reflects or rhymes the pattern of the leaves on the ground. The other thing that I love about the lighting is I'm just really enjoying the warmth of the light. It may be time of day, or it may be the fact that the light is reflecting off of these warm leaves, or a combination of those two things. And I also like the softness of the light. You get a real strong sense over in this part of the image of open shadows, and I think that's helping this image. Back in here you start to get contrast that begins to be a little bit overwhelming, but over in this part of the image, shadows are filling and the lighting pattern is there, and you're getting the difference between highlight and shadow that's creating dimension, but there's not so much contrast that the idea of contrast starts to compete with the subjects in the image, the downspout and the wall, and the center block and the leaves. And again, those open shadows could be time of day. It could be the fill that's bouncing off of this very bright bit of corner of the house and the downspout, or a combination of those things. There's a lot to like about the lighting here. Another thing that I love about this image is color, and to me color is one of the main things that is taking what could have been a very documentary, ordinary image, and it's starting to push it in the direction of something that's more fine art. So this is going to give us a chance to talk about color theory. We haven't done that in a while. Let's bring the painters or mixing color wheel in here and talk about color theory for a second. We talk a lot about the primary colors and their secondary complements, yellow being a primary, violet being a secondary complement, blue is a primary, orange is its secondary complement, red's a primary, and green is its secondary complement. But we don't talk as much about the tertiary colors, these in-between colors. And two tertiary colors that can really start to push things that are even ordinary in terms of subject in more of a direction of being extraordinary, more exquisite, more painterly, more fine art. Two colors that can do that are blue-green and red-orange. And to me, if you take this color, the blue-green, out of this image, it starts to become a lot more ordinary. It's one of the main things to me that really takes this from just an ordinary snapshot, an ordinary scene, and starts to push it in the direction of something that's much more artful. And you can see the red-orange in here, even though this is a muted version of red-orange, that's it right there. And it just plays beautifully off of the blue-green. So I just wanted to mention that and challenge you to think about the tertiary colors and to look for scenes where you may be able to play around with this color pair. I'd also love to hear your opinions and feedback about that part of the image. Let's keep going. We already mentioned something that I like in this image, which is a rhythm, and you see it here, but there's also a great sense of unity based on one of the main ideas, the square opening. Because of the color here, the idea of sort of square plays out in a lot of ways in the image over and over and over again, and that creates a unity or a rhythm that's pretty powerful. And that brings me to Perfect World Improvement. When I look at this image, one of the other things that I love about it is the idea of something that's very, very everyday, ordinary, because of, in this case, in my opinion, light and color becoming something that's much more extraordinary. And I'd like to keep pushing in that direction. And I'd also like to tighten the image up a little bit. And I think that I can do those two things with one idea, which is to make this more of a square image and get this more in the middle of the composition. The square crop will obviously rhyme one of the main ideas. And by putting this in more into the middle, that's more congruent with a square framing. Centering works really well within a square crop. And the other thing about square is, because we're not seeing it as much anymore, it just has more of an extraordinary feel to it. Square cameras have gone away. Everybody, almost everybody, has gone to 35mm digital and we don't think of cropping that much. We shoot full frame a lot. So the square itself has sort of a fine art feel to it. So how could we do that? Well, we could just crop, but I like most of the information in the image. There's one part that I'd crop away, and it's this corner over here, and I feel like we could sort of lose some information, and it would tighten the image up. This brings me into a whole new room in the image. And so you just get the crop tool, crop from the left, and just get rid of that. But at this point, I really don't want to do much more cropping. I really like the information in the image. So now what I could do is I could work with rescaling to get this more into the middle of the image. And we could do content aware scaling, but it would waste our time because we'd have to make a selection and save it. We could do something much quicker, which is just get the marquee tool and come right over to the edge of the downspout, just to right there, and do an Apple or Control J, put that up on its own layer, go to Edit, Transform, Scale, and then scale in quite a bit. The thing is, the viewer just doesn't have the perspective on this, and so in doing this, the viewer, without knowing we've done it, is just not going to challenge it visually. And we could just sort of eyeball this and push it over to the point where we feel like we're getting close to square. We feel like the downspout is getting more close to the middle of the image. Double click, apply that scaling, come back to the crop tool, crop off the duplication over here on the left, double click here, and then from here what I would consider doing is going to my adjustment panel, going to curves, making the sampler here active, coming over to here and pulling down on the curve to make that darker. I want to darken the top part, and I always just overcorrect. I don't think about it a whole heck of a lot. Whatever kind of correction I'm making, I always do it to the max, way past the point where I'm going to apply it. I'm going to go back to layers. I'm going to fill this mask with black. I want to make sure the mask is active. Black is my background color over here. Apple or Control Delete will fill the mask with black. Get my brush tool. Make sure my hardness on the brush is at 0, which is where I want to be to apply local adjustments to a mask. I'm going to go to, let's say, 10% opacity and get a pretty big brush. And I'm going to come in and just start hitting in here and bringing this down from the top part of the image. I just want to keep the eye from rushing out on the top part there, and I just want to darken all this down, and then we can stop and see what we've done so far. And I'm liking that, and I could keep pushing it. For the sake of the critique, I'm not going to make this perfect. You get the idea. I may even come in and in this area right in here clone in a little bit of information or grab some other information and layer it in there. I would be looking to continue to push this in the direction of making this more and more of a focal point in the image. Might even darken over here a little bit. Might even open this shadow up and open these areas down in here. I mean, the other thing that we could do is we could come in with a hue saturation adjustment, and we could pop that, the blue-green, we could pop that out. When I look at this image, I think from here there's a fair amount more that I might do to it, but it's pretty close, and it makes me think this would be the start of an incredible square crop series of images of ordinary things. And you do work with color and light to make them extraordinary. I mean, to me, this is an image that I just love from a color standpoint and from a rhythm standpoint. I think it would make a really beautiful exhibition print. And let's just look at where we started. That's where we started. And that's where we ended up, just based on the idea of centering and square. And like I said, I think we could take this further. And one thing that I want to mention here at the end is our Atlanta Inspirational Weekend, June 20th and 21st. We'd love to see you there. This weekend is going to represent an incredible value. Other national schools that come to your town, like the Nikon School, are going to charge you on average around $180. So it's a great price. Large group presentations are one of my specialties. It's something that I've been doing for over a decade, speaking for different schools all across the country. I love doing large groups, and we try to get a lot more inspiration, a lot more feeling, a lot more emotion, a lot more of just ideas about how you can be more creative behind the camera. So it's not just about the camera and what's in front of the camera, it's also about how we're being behind the camera, because everything goes through that filter. And we'd love to see you in Atlanta at our first weekend. And if you have a camera club somewhere in the country and you'd like to bring the Mindful Eye to your city, we have a great sort of sponsor program where we can work with you in a very affordable way, in a way where your camera club can make some money, bring our weekend to your camera club as a sponsor. So you can just send an email to us at web support, and if you'd like to sign up for our Atlanta weekend, you can find that by clicking on workshops in the menu bar at the top of our homepage. Big thank you to Kel for sharing this beautiful image with us, and big thank you to you for being here at the Mindful Eye on the Daily Critique.